I'm a 22-year-old female, and I've been dealing with some intense family drama that's left me feeling conflicted and hurt. My mom, Lisa, 45F, has always been a complicated figure in my life. She and my dad, Tom, 47M, divorced when I was just 8 years old. It was a messy split, with lots of arguing and tension that I didn't fully understand at the time. Growing up, I always felt caught in the middle of my parents' conflicts. Even before the divorce, I have memories of them fighting late into the night, their raised voices carrying through the thin walls of our small house. My dad worked long hours as a construction manager, often coming home tired and irritable. My mom, who was a stay-at-home parent at the time, would complain about feeling isolated and unappreciated. I remember one particular night when I was about 6 years old. I had woken up to use the bathroom and overheard my parents in a heated argument. My mom was crying, accusing my dad of not caring about her or our family. My dad's voice was low and angry, saying something about financial stress and feeling suffocated. I sat at the top of the stairs, clutching my stuffed rabbit, too scared to go back to my room. That image of my parents as adversaries rather than a united front stuck with me for years. After the divorce, I lived primarily with my mom. She did her best to provide for me, going back to school to become a nurse and working long hours to keep us afloat financially. But emotionally, things were often strained between us. Lisa had a tendency to be moody and unpredictable. Some days she'd be loving and attentive, other days she'd snap at me over small things or give me the silent treatment. As a kid, I never knew which version of my mom I'd be dealing with on any given day. I remember one time when I was about 10, I had a big school project due. I needed poster board and some other supplies, but I was afraid to ask my mom for money because she had been in a bad mood all week. When I finally worked up the courage to ask, she exploded, yelling about how I always waited until the last minute and how she couldn't afford to keep buying things for my stupid projects. I ended up using an old cardboard box and some markers we had around the house. My project looked terrible compared to my classmates, and I was embarrassed to present it. That incident really stuck with me, making me hesitant to ask for help or express my needs. My relationship with my dad remained positive, even though I only saw him every other weekend. Tom was always patient and kind with me, making our limited time together special. He'd take me to the park, help with my homework, or just sit and talk with me about my life. I looked forward to those weekends as an escape from the tension at home with Mom. One of my favorite memories with my dad was from when I was about 12. He took me camping for the first time. We spent the whole weekend hiking, fishing, and sitting around the campfire. It was during that trip that I really opened up to him about how hard things were at home with Mom. He listened without judgment, offering comfort and advice. That weekend was a turning point in our relationship, cementing my dad as a source of stability in my often chaotic life. As I got older, the issues with my mom intensified. When I was around 14, Lisa started dating again. She went through a string of boyfriends, some of whom made me uncomfortable. There was one guy, Steve, who would make inappropriate comments about my appearance or try to walk in on me changing. When I told my mom about it, she accused me of being dramatic and trying to sabotage her happiness. That incident created a huge rift between us. I remember feeling so betrayed and alone during that time. I started spending more time at friends' houses, avoiding being home as much as possible. I threw myself into schoolwork and extracurricular activities, anything to keep busy and out of the house. My grades improved, but my relationship with my mom deteriorated further. Throughout high school, Lisa and I fought constantly. She'd criticize my friends, my clothes, my grades. Nothing I did was ever good enough. Meanwhile, she was out partying most weekends, often coming home drunk and berating me for being boring and prudish because I focused on my studies instead of going out. There were times I seriously considered asking to live with my dad full-time, but I worried about abandoning my mom when she clearly had issues. I recall one particularly bad fight during my junior year. I had been invited to a sleepover at my best friend's house, but my mom refused to let me go. She said I needed to stay home and help her clean the house for a date she was having over. When I protested, pointing out that she had sprung this on me last minute, she flew into a rage. She called me selfish and ungrateful, saying I was just like my father, always putting myself first. In the heat of the moment, she slapped me across the face. It was the first and only time she ever hit me, but it marked a turning point in our relationship. After that, I stopped trying to please her or gain her approval. I just focused on getting through high school so I could leave. Things came to a head during my senior year of high school. Lisa had been dating a guy named Mark, 38M, for about 6 months. He seemed nice enough, and my mom appeared happier than she had in years. Mark was a successful real estate agent, and he often took my mom out to fancy restaurants or weekend getaways. For once, she wasn't constantly complaining about money or feeling stuck. I was cautiously optimistic that maybe things were looking up. But then I discovered something that would blow up our entire family. One day after school, I came home early because I wasn't feeling well. As I walked in the front door, I heard noises coming from my mom's bedroom. Thinking she might be homesick too, I went to check on her. What I saw when I opened the door horrified me. My mom was in bed with Mark's brother, Paul, 35M. I was frozen in shock. Lisa jumped up, wrapping herself in a sheet and screaming at me to get out. I ran to my room and locked the door, my mind reeling. I couldn't believe my mom would cheat on Mark, especially with his own brother. It made me sick. For the next few days, there was intense tension in our house. My mom alternated between ignoring me completely and snapping at me angrily. I didn't know what to do. Should I tell Mark? Should I pretend I hadn't seen anything? The weight of the secret was crushing me. I remember lying awake at night, replaying the scene in my mind and feeling sick to my stomach. I thought about all the times my mom had accused my dad of cheating during their marriage, which, as far as I knew, he never had. The hypocrisy was staggering. I also couldn't help but think about Mark, who had always been kind to me and seemed to genuinely care for my mom. The thought of him being betrayed like this made me angry on his behalf. Finally, about a week after the incident, I broke down and called my dad. I told him everything, sobbing as I recounted what I'd seen. Tom was furious on my behalf. He said I shouldn't have to carry this burden and that Mark deserved to know the truth. With my dad's encouragement, I decided to tell Mark what had happened. The fallout was explosive. I called Mark and asked to meet him in person. When I told him what I'd witnessed, he was devastated. He confronted my mom, who initially tried to deny everything. But when Mark said he was going to ask Paul directly, Lisa finally admitted to the affair. Mark broke up with her on the spot. My mom was livid. She screamed at me, calling me a traitor and saying I'd ruined her life. She told me to get out and never come back. Through my tears, I packed a bag and went to stay with my dad. Lisa texted me later that night saying I was dead to her and she never wanted to see me again. For the next few months, I lived with my dad full-time. He was incredibly supportive, helping me work through my hurt and anger in the aftermath of everything. I finished out my senior year and was accepted to a college about 2 hours away. As difficult as things had been, I was looking forward to a fresh start. The day I left for college, my mom showed up at my dad's house unexpectedly. She begged me not to go, saying she was sorry and that she needed me. But after everything that had happened, I couldn't bring myself to forgive her so easily. I told her I needed space and left for school with a heavy heart. That was 4 years ago. In that time, I've had minimal contact with my mom. She's reached out periodically, usually when she's going through a rough patch and wants support. But I've maintained firm boundaries, not letting myself get sucked back into her drama. College has been a time of healing and growth for me. I've made wonderful friends, excelled in my studies, and even started seeing a therapist to work through some of my family issues. I've also grown closer to my dad, who has become a rock of support in my life. Recently, though, things have shifted. My mom has been persistently trying to reconnect, saying she's changed and wants to make amends. She's been sending long emails and leaving tearful voicemails. Part of me wants to believe her, to have my mom back in my life. But I'm scared of getting hurt again. I don't know if I can ever fully trust her after everything that's happened. So that's where things stand now. I'm torn between protecting myself and potentially giving my mom another chance. Am I wrong for being hesitant to let her back in? Should I try to forgive and move forward? Or maintain the distance I've established? I could really use some outside perspective on this complicated situation. Update 1: It's been about a month since my original post, and a lot has happened. I want to thank everyone who took the time to offer advice and share their own experiences. Your insights really helped me gain some clarity on the situation with my mom. After much consideration, I decided to meet up with my mom in person. We agreed to have lunch at a neutral location, a small cafe in my college town. I was incredibly nervous leading up to it, unsure of what to expect. The days leading up to our meeting were filled with anxiety. I found myself constantly replaying memories from my childhood, both good and bad. I remembered the rare good times, like when my mom took a day off work to nurse me through a bad case of the flu, or when she stayed up all night helping me finish a school project I had procrastinated on. But I also couldn't forget the countless disappointments and hurtful moments that had characterized so much of our relationship. The night before our meetup, I barely slept. I tossed and turned, imagining all the possible ways the conversation could go. Part of me was hopeful that this could be a turning point, a chance to rebuild our relationship on healthier terms. But another part of me was terrified of being hurt again, of letting my guard down only to have my mom revert to her old patterns of behavior. When I saw my mom, Lisa, I was struck by how much older she looked. The past 4 years had clearly taken a toll on her. Her hair, which she had always meticulously dyed and styled, was showing streaks of gray. There were new lines around her eyes and mouth, and she seemed to have lost weight. She broke down crying almost immediately, telling me how sorry she was for everything and how much she had missed me. It was uncomfortable and emotionally draining, to say the least. We talked for nearly 3 hours. Lisa told me she had been in therapy for the past year, working on her issues with relationships and impulsivity. She said she realized how toxic her behavior had been and how unfairly she had treated me growing up. She also revealed that she had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which explained some of her erratic moods and poor decision-making. As she spoke, I found myself remembering specific incidents from my childhood that suddenly made more sense in light of this diagnosis. The times when she would stay up for days, manically cleaning the house or starting new projects. The periods of deep depression when she would barely get out of bed. The impulsive decisions, like the time she spent our rent money on a shopping spree or when she quit her job without having another one lined up. Lisa went on to explain that she had been on medication for her bipolar disorder for about 6 months now, and it had made a significant difference in stabilizing her moods. She talked about the coping mechanisms she had learned in therapy and how she was working on taking responsibility for her actions instead of blaming others. While part of me wanted to believe her, I couldn't shake my skepticism. I've seen my mom go through phases of claiming to change before, only to revert to her old ways. I told her honestly that while I appreciated her apology, I wasn't ready to jump back into a close relationship. I suggested we take things very slowly, maybe starting with occasional phone calls or meetups. Lisa seemed disappointed but said she understood. She gave me a letter she had written, asking me to read it when I felt ready. I haven't opened it yet, I'm still processing everything from our meeting. After lunch, I called my dad to fill him in. Tom was supportive of my decision to meet Lisa but cautioned me to be careful. He reminded me that I don't owe my mom anything and that it's okay to prioritize my own well-being. My dad shared that he had suspected Lisa might have had bipolar disorder during their marriage, but she had always refused to seek help. He expressed hope that she was genuinely getting treatment now, but also warned me not to get my hopes up too high. In the weeks since our meetup, Lisa has respected my boundaries for the most part. She texts occasionally but doesn't push when I take a while to respond. It's a delicate balance. I'm trying to be open to the possibility of reconciliation while also protecting myself emotionally. One unexpected development is that this situation has brought me closer to my half-sister, Amy, 15F. She's Lisa's daughter from a brief relationship a few years after her divorce from my dad. Amy and I were never super close growing up due to the age gap, but she reached out to me recently. Apparently, Lisa has been leaning on Amy pretty heavily, putting her in an uncomfortable position. Amy confided that she feels trapped between wanting to support our mom and feeling overwhelmed by her neediness. She told me about instances where Lisa would call her in the middle of the night, crying and asking Amy to come over. Or times when Lisa would forget to pick Amy up from school because she was in a depressive episode. Hearing Amy's experiences brought up a lot of memories for me. I remembered feeling similarly trapped and overwhelmed when I was her age, constantly walking on eggshells around my mom's moods. I've been trying to be there for Amy as much as I can, offering a listening ear and advice when asked. I've also encouraged her to talk to a school counselor or therapist if she feels comfortable doing so. This situation with Amy has made me reflect on my own role as an older sister. When Amy was born, I was already dealing with so much tension at home that I never really bonded with her. Now, I'm realizing that she might need my support more than ever. We've started having regular video chats, and I'm trying to be the supportive big sister I wish I'd had at her age. So that's where things stand currently. I'm cautiously optimistic but still very wary. My plan is to continue taking things slowly with Lisa, maintaining firm boundaries and seeing if her changed behavior is sustained over time. I'm also focusing on strengthening my relationship with Amy and being a source of stability for her. I'm still grappling with a lot of conflicting emotions: hope, fear, resentment, longing. Part of me wants to believe that my mom has truly changed and that we could have the relationship I've always wanted. But another part of me is afraid of being disappointed again, of opening myself up only to be hurt. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time. I'm continuing with my own therapy, which has been incredibly helpful in processing all of this. I'm also leaning on my support system, my dad, my friends, and now Amy. I'll update again if there are any major developments. Thanks again to everyone who has offered support and advice through this complicated situation. Your words have meant more than you know. Update 2. It's been about 3 months since my last update, and unfortunately, things have taken a turn for the worse. I wanted to share what's been going on and get some advice on how to proceed. For a while, things were going relatively smoothly with my mom, Lisa. We were having semi-regular phone calls and had even met up for coffee a couple of times. She seemed to be respecting my boundaries and working on herself. I started to feel cautiously optimistic about rebuilding our relationship. During this time, Lisa shared more about her bipolar disorder diagnosis and treatment. She talked about the medication she was on and how it was helping stabilize her moods. She also told me about the cognitive behavioral therapy techniques she was learning to manage her emotions better. I was impressed by her apparent commitment to her mental health and felt hopeful that this time might be different. However, about a month ago, Lisa lost her job. She had been working as a nurse at a local hospital but was fired for repeated tardiness and unprofessional behavior. When she called to tell me, she was hysterical, blaming everyone but herself for the situation. It was like a switch had flipped, and suddenly she was back to her old patterns of behavior. As Lisa recounted the events leading to her firing, I started to see cracks in the story she had been telling me about her recovery. She admitted that she had stopped taking her medication regularly because she didn't like how it made her feel. She had also stopped attending therapy sessions, claiming she didn't have time due to her work schedule. Since then, Lisa has been constantly calling and texting me, often late at night or early in the morning. She's been asking for money, saying she can't make rent and might become homeless. When I've gently suggested she look into unemployment benefits or job training programs, she gets angry and accuses me of not caring about her. The situation came to a head last week when Lisa showed up unannounced at my apartment. I was shocked to see her. She lives over 2 hours away, and I had never given her my address. Apparently, she had guilted my sister Amy into telling her where I lived. Lisa was clearly drunk when she arrived. She started screaming at me in the hallway, saying I was a terrible daughter for abandoning her in her time of need. My neighbors came out to see what the commotion was about, and I was mortified. I finally managed to calm Lisa down enough to get her inside, where she promptly passed out on my couch. The next morning, Lisa acted like nothing had happened. She tried to make small talk over coffee as if she hadn't just shown up drunk and caused a scene. When I tried to address the incident, she brushed it off and changed the subject. She ended up staying for 3 days, during which time she ransacked my apartment looking for money or valuables while I was at work. I finally reached my breaking point and told Lisa she needed to leave. She threw another tantrum, calling me selfish and ungrateful. As she was storming out, she knocked over a shelf, breaking several framed photos and keepsakes. I was left feeling drained, angry, and incredibly disappointed. Since then, I've blocked Lisa's number and on all social media. I feel guilty, but I just can't deal with the chaos she brings into my life. I'm worried about my sister Amy, who is still living with Lisa full-time. I've told Amy she can always come stay with me if things get bad at home. I also found out that Lisa has been bad-mouthing me to our extended family, telling them I've abandoned her in her time of need. Some relatives have been reaching out, pressuring me to help my mom. It's frustrating because they don't know the full story. This whole situation has brought up a lot of painful memories from my childhood. I'm reminded of all the times Lisa would promise to change, only to fall back into her old patterns. I'm feeling a mix of anger, disappointment, and grief, mourning the mother I wish I had and the relationship we'll probably never have. I've been talking to my therapist about all of this, trying to process my feelings and figure out how to move forward. She's been helping me work on setting and maintaining healthy boundaries, which has been challenging but necessary. At this point, I feel like I've reached the end of my rope. I want to maintain no contact with Lisa, but I'm worried about the potential fallout with other family members. I'm also concerned about Amy's well-being. Any advice on how to handle this situation would be greatly appreciated. Update 3. It's been about 6 months since my last update, and I wanted to share some significant developments in my family situation. Shortly after my last post, things with my mom, Lisa, hit rock bottom. She continued to harass me despite my attempts to go no contact, even showing up at my workplace once. I had to involve campus security to escort her off the premises, which was humiliating and stressful. The incident left me shaken and afraid to go to work for weeks afterward. The final straw came when Lisa somehow got access to my bank account and withdrew a significant amount of money. I suspect she may have stolen some of my personal documents during her stay at my apartment. I immediately froze my accounts and filed a police report, but it was devastating to have to take legal action against my own mother. In the midst of this chaos, my sister Amy reached out to me in desperation. Lisa's behavior had become increasingly erratic and potentially dangerous. Amy confided that Lisa had been drinking heavily and bringing strange men home. She didn't feel safe in the house anymore. Amy described nights where she would barricade herself in her room, terrified of the shouting and crashing sounds coming from downstairs. After a lot of discussion with my dad and consultation with a family lawyer, we decided to petition for emergency custody of Amy. It was a difficult and emotional process, but ultimately successful. The court hearing was one of the most stressful experiences of my life. Lisa showed up drunk and caused a scene, which ironically probably helped our case. Amy has been living with my dad for the past 4 months, and the change in her demeanor is remarkable. She's doing better in school and seems much happier overall. As for Lisa, she didn't take the loss of custody well. She's been in and out of rehab, but doesn't seem committed to making real changes. The last I heard, she had moved in with a new boyfriend and was talking about relocating to another state. Part of me hopes she does move away, as it might finally give us all some peace. On a more positive note, this ordeal has brought me much closer to my dad and Amy. We formed a tight-knit support system, and I'm grateful for their presence in my life. I've been spending more weekends at my dad's house, helping Amy adjust to her new living situation and just enjoying family time. It's bittersweet. I'm happy we're all closer now, but sad about the circumstances that brought us together. I've maintained my no-contact stance with Lisa, which hasn't been easy but feels necessary for my mental health. Some family members still don't understand and continue to pressure me to reconcile, but I'm standing firm in my decision. I've had to distance myself from a few particularly pushy relatives, which has been painful but ultimately for the best. Looking back on everything that's happened over the past year, I feel a mix of sadness, anger, and relief. While I mourn the relationship I wish I could have had with my mom, I'm also proud of myself for setting boundaries and prioritizing my well-being. It's been a long, difficult journey, but I finally feel like I'm on a path towards healing and stability. Moving forward, my focus is on healing, supporting Amy through this transition, and building positive relationships with the family members who respect my choices. It's not the outcome I would have chosen, but I'm hopeful for a brighter, more stable future.